What's up, everybody? This is Ricardo Rodriguez,
and Matthew Messick,
and this is
the Profits Over Wages podcast. Welcome to episode 5 of the Profits Over Wages podcast. Our guest today is Tony Reyes. Tony is a former Marine and is the founder and CEO of Walton Contractors. Walton Contractors was just named the 197th fastest growing company in America by Inc. magazine. Tony and his team does storm restoration, general construction, and rehabbing and flipping for both investors as well as themselves.
On today's episode of the podcast, we visit Tony at his office and talk about being a positive role model and getting involved in your community, why veterans make great entrepreneurs and business owners, and tips from Tony on how to find, vet, and hire great contractors. Enjoy the show.
So, I was I don't know if I'll put this on the podcast though.
What?
So I was editing the podcast that we posted today, Kirby's episode.
Yeah, I was listening to it earlier.
And I noticed that 3 out of our first 5 guests are all veterans.
Dang.
Like unintentionally.
Get
Because
outta
I know
here.
you were in the Marines,
Correct,
right?
Marine Corps, 8 years.
And Home Depot.
Veterans make good business owners.
No, not only that, but it's like
Work well under pressure.
that and the fact that, not being born here, it really makes you appreciate what some people would do for the country, right? Like knowing, like growing up in a third world country and kind of before moving here, seeing it as this land of like opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that there's people out there that are willing to raise their hand and be like, I'm willing to go on the front lines to protect what this country means to everybody.
Absolutely.
It's it definitely makes you thankful for people like you and Kirby and George as well. So
It's the highest form of patriotism, man. I believe that. It was funny for me because I grew up in Oak Park, and I felt like I was the only Hispanic at that time. Like my brother and I were the only Hispanics in school. Yeah, we pretty much were. But it's like we grew up with a lot of Caucasian, a lot of African American people, and it just like I saw how they valued the military, and the discipline that went involved. And I felt like I wanted to do like that. I wanted to do that for my country. I wanted to see what it'd be a part to like serve, right? So yeah, I think the biggest thing though, going back to like veterans make good entrepreneurs, is that, man, you're used to being treated like shit, so that helps. But you work well under pressure, discipline. You have to be calculated, I think, and you kind of have to understand strategy, right? Like you have to know the end all goal. You're not just gonna take a hill or attack a hill without having some kind of exit strategy or plan or follow-up plan, right? So I think that all those things kind of mesh together, make veterans good entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we noticed too when we were talking to Kirby, because he's always like, he's got to have a plan. Like he's always the plan, and then he works his way backwards from where he wants to get to.
Yeah.
Not only that, but being able to make decisions quick and all that. I don't know. I thought it was cool. Like I didn't really think about it, and it just it's sort of a coincidence that 3 of our first 5 guests were all veterans. Yeah. But anyway, I kind of want to sit down with you because I like what you have running here with Walton Contractors and how involved you're in the community and all that. But before we get into what you're up to now, I kind of wanted to ask you, how is it that you got to where you're at now? Like, because I know you started flipping houses, right? That was like your first thing, or how did you end up where you're at now?
All right, it starts a long time ago. So, my dad had a construction company growing up, mostly like siding, windows, gutters, stuff like that. So every summer, my brother and I would have to go help. We'd have to go pick the trash, earn our keep basically. And then in that, I realized that I had a love for construction, and I wanted to be an architect. Is what I initially wanted to do. And then at the end of my senior year, at the end of my junior year, I did very well in school. I got accepted to a pretty prestigious private school for architecture. And then my parents had made enough money to not qualify for FAFSA, but apparently not enough to get the loan that was required for me to go ahead and go to the school.
Stuck in no man's land.
Exactly. So then, that mixed with what we were just talking about earlier, like my love for military, just wanted to get disciplined. I decided, I'm going to go serve my country, go to the Marine Corps, and then I will, be able to use the GI Bill to go to school for free.
Nice.
Right? And in the Marine Corps, my parents, they always owned like buy and hold real estate. They owned quite a few units on the south side of Chicago, rentals. And I just saw how I think like I have 5 uncles who are multimillionaires because of real estate. Like they do very, very well. They come here, they still don't speak English. You know, they still don't speak English. But I saw that real estate really helped them build their net worth, and now they're way in a way better position than they were when they got to this country. Obviously, right? So one of my uncles, which I consider one of my first mentors, when I was away in Iraq, he just started sending me, or just deployed. He would send me books. Like one of the first books he sent me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah. And I read that, and I kind of just opened my mind. I'm like, holy moly, like I could be a millionaire. You know, like I could build an empire. And that really was just like kind of like the gateway book that led into greater books like Michael Gerber's The E-Myth, 4-Hour Work Week, you know, The Cash Flow Quadrant, you know, man, the list goes on and on. All the classics for sure, you know. And that just really.
You know, there's a Think and Grow Rich movie coming out.
No.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I just saw that.
Nice.
By Napoleon Hill's organization.
I think so. I don't know. I saw it somewhere on Instagram that Rob Dyrdek, you know, which is
the
crazy
DS or DC guy.
serial entrepreneur kind of guy.
Okay.
They were at the Think and Grow Rich movie premiere, which is kind of cool. I don't know. I'm interested.
Wow. Yeah, I'd watch it for sure.
But anyway,
that's another classic too, dude. So long story short, dude, I realized that I wanted to get involved in real estate, and my passion for construction or wanting to be an architect, and my passion for really trying to build wealth was born in that moment. So I served in the Marine Corps for 8 years, and when I was getting out, I was kind of just it was kind of a last minute thing because they were going to ship me to Germany. I was going to go with my wife. I had just got married, and I got orders to go to Stuttgart, Germany if I re-enlisted. And then my uncle, who was my mentor, who was just kind of sending me these books and kind of just guiding me. And at that time, it was right after the first market crash. And he was kind of just picking up the pieces of, doing like a self-analysis of what went wrong, what went right, what he shouldn't have done. And I just thought, you know what, like, I can do it now. Like, it's kind of like a leveled playing field because everyone who was a monster in the game or was doing well just not got hit hard, you know?
First market crash, which one?
2008.
Okay.
2000. Well, not the I meant the last
one.
Yeah,
I was like, when's another
in
one?
1929. No, but the last market crash. So I thought it was an opportunity for me to get out. So he had just started a business doing construction sales, and I saw it as an opportunity. So against my wife's wishes, I said, you know what, I'm going to get out of the Marine Corps. I'm going to try my hand at this. I've read so much, Tony Robbins' book and all these, Brian Tracy, that I was so pumped up, man. I was so motivated. I'm like, I can make it happen. I'm like, if it's to be, it's up to me. I'm going to make it happen.
That's kind of cool that your uncle would just send you books unsolicited.
Yeah.
I think he saw some potential,
right.
Maybe, he's like, this guy is a jarhead. I was a Marine. Kirby Atwell was like a officer who went to West Point,
Right.
I was in the infantry. So, I guess he was looking out for my best interest at that time because I had been stationed and we went to combat zone. It was just, the future of the Marine Corps and going to war, it goes hand in hand, right? That's very probable if I would have stayed in.
Right.
So long story short, I got out. I became a construction salesperson with focus in store administration, and I was always looking for my way to get involved in real estate. And I bought my first buy and hold in Berwyn with no money and no credit. I just kind of quarterbacked the whole deal,
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. And then I did it again, and then I did it again, and I kept doing it. And then I recently just bought my first home last year. But I had done at least 12 buy and holds and a couple dozen of flips before I owned my own personal residence. And I was really always proud of that because I was always trying to look at how can I leverage myself? How can I parlay the wealth that I'm doing into another investment? And that was the beginning of me trying to get into flipping because I knew that in flipping I call it a cash influx, right? It's not really wealth. It's just a way to really build capital right away so that you can keep turning the money and keep parlaying into some other kind of investment. So my first flip was in West Pullman. Which is, if you guys are not familiar with the South Side Chicago, it's a really rough neighborhood.
We're familiar. One time we went to go check out a house, and as we were walking in, there was some gunshots. And Ricardo got pretty scared and ran across the house.
Dude, I remember I was walking up the stairs, in the front, and all of a sudden I out of my peripheral, I see people running, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? And then just like, pow, pow, pow.
Oh, man.
And the lockbox was one of those ones where it's like really hard to put in the code. Like you gotta it's like a wheel, and it wasn't even numbers; it was all letters. Oh. So it's like it takes you at least,
it's probably
20 tries.
Dude.
He's trying to break it off. He's
I'm
like,
fuck, I'm not trying to get shot right now. And then, but yeah, I just stood there inside for a while.
I don't blame you, dude.
And we ended up not buying the house.
It was actually
I liked it though.
it was actually pretty nice. It had been really. It was a newer house. Like they built it in 2006.
Where was it
I
at?
think it was 09. It was on 100. I want to say 115th.
Something like that.
Wow. And what?
I can't do it.
Like,
So was West Pullman
just,
also?
it was just, I want to say, just east of the highway.
Got it.
It was
Yeah,
a nice house.
that's West Pullman.
But yeah. Anyway.
So that was so the thing was that's the only thing I could afford. You know, I bought a house for $40,000, and I you know, at that point in our company we couldn't afford to get some kind of hard money loan, or they probably weren't going to look at us. So we were doing storm restoration, which is what we do a lot in our company, which is working with basically homeowners who are insured who have suffered some kind of collateral damage to their property due to the storms. And then we were also doing general construction, and I was just always trying to get my leg in because we had a construction company to start doing the interior. So that was my first project, and man, that was a learning lesson, man. That was a pain. There were some sleepless nights there for sure.
Even with the construction background.
Yeah, because my dad only focused on exterior.
Oh.
I didn't know anything in the interior. I didn't know anything about mechanicals or framing or structural. Everything that we ever did was just like, you know, siding, windows, gutters, roofing, and that's all pretty. I mean, those are easy trades. Most of those projects are done in 2 or 3 days. Unlike, you know, you look at plumbing on a big
Right.
job. That's
It's a lot of
2-week job.
layers.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. A lot of trade knowledge that you had to use to manage people, and since we lacked that knowledge, it was difficult for us to manage them. You know.
Did you just see it yourself?
I did.
How did it go?
It went horrible. I learned a lot though.
I feel like that's always on first case, right? Like the first deal you ever do is always going to be the toughest one.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily because it's there's just a lot of things that you don't know about, right? I think everything happens on every deal, but you just get better at dealing with the bullshit, or you could see it happening ahead of time.
You just vet people out.
The less unknowns.
Absolutely, absolutely less
Like
unknowns.
the more experience you get, at first it's like everything that comes your way, it's like fuck.
The end of the world, yeah.
Right.
We lost $8,000 on that deal, man. But that was the first and last flip that I ever lost money on, because it really was ingrained into me. It was really like, it was very difficult because at the same time we were still trying to grow every other aspect of our business. You know, still trying to be a family man, still trying to get everything else done. So this was just another layer of difficulty that sometimes becomes in with being an entrepreneur. But I learned a lot. It was every problem that you can imagine it had. It had, you know, we turned on the water. The house that it was winterized, it wasn't winterized. All the plumbing started leaking. We didn't know that, right? Because you can't turn on the water prior. It had termite damage. I mean, it had structural issues. I mean, everything that could, I call it the crack. I was doing a blog post one time, and I didn't want to print it. I'm like, man, this is really not going to work in my favor. I print this, but I was going to say, you know, the Chicago unleashes a kraken on local Chicago contractor, because that's what it felt like.
Like we're actually thinking about for our 10th episode to put a series of first deal stories together.
Horror stories.
Horror stories.
Because like our first deal was pretty bad as well, and you know, anybody that we've talked to, right? Because like I said, there's just a lot of unknowns going on, and you're not really prepared to deal with them.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, you're lucky you only lost 8,000 with all those problems. I mean, our first deal we lost 12. Someone else that came on earlier in the year was lost like 40
Ouch.
on his first deal, and it took him a few years to recover.
Yeah, I bet.
And just, I feel like it happens to everyone. They say you do your first flip not to make money, but you do it for the experience, so that the ones later on you make money, which
Absolutely.
So after the first one, you did a couple dozen after that.
Yeah, we've done close to 75 now.
And that's just your own.
No, I mean, well, that's mixed, some of our own and some of that we do for investors. So when we first started out, the first 10 or 12 were our own, and then through there, I guess we kind of just seen investors who were in the area saying, "Hey, you do construction? Can you give me a bid?" And from there, it kind of grew on. It was never our intention to advertise doing construction for investors. It was just kind of, it was a department of our company.
It's a huge necessity. Like
Yeah.
that's, I mean, it's
The demand is
sort
crazy,
of
huh?
gonna become a theme on our podcast, but that's like, I think the biggest piece of the puzzle when it comes to doing rehabs, right? You make your money when you buy, but you either secure that gain or you lose that profit during the construction phase,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. You got to stay on your timelines. And I think the biggest thing that I see with people is the project management portion. That's where they suffer, because your contractor is realizing that you're not staying on top of them, or that you don't understand what you're doing, and they just exploit that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of dishonest people, but absolutely.
And unfortunately, you're at a disadvantage because they have all the leverage. They're the ones with the knowledge. They're the ones with the crew. You're the one that, even though you know the business side, you don't necessarily know how to deal with contractors. You don't know their schedule. You don't know how it is that some of the guys need to be texted every morning and asked if they're going to show up or the night before. You know, I've slowly learned that. You know, and I'm sure it gets annoying to them, but it's like, you're not gonna care about my money like I do.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna continue to text you the day before what time you're gonna be there the next day, kind of thing.
In the Marine Corps, they say, Marines will do what you inspect, not what you expect. And that's exactly how you have to handle, I think, in our construction business, that's how we handle our contractors, our employees. We inspect and expect of you, so we're there to kind of coach them. But like you're saying, like people who have a normal 9-to-5 job and they're trying to do 1 or 2 flips at a time, that's very difficult for them. They're not as fortunate as us who say, let me go pop on my next project and see if there's people there because he's not answering our phone. How do they know any better,
You don't.
Yeah, it's the sad truth.
And that's why, you hire guys like you guys who are, you're on top of your things. Actually, I just saw that you guys got named 100 Magazine's 150.
197. Yeah.
Nice.
So so Inc. does this thing kind of like Forbes 500. They do an Inc. 5,000 of the 5,000 fastest growing companies in the United States. Private companies, obviously, small business. And we thought, man, if we can become that 5,000 or 4,999th company, that'd be pretty cool, Yeah. And we submitted, and we got ranked 197 because it's based on growth. We grew over 2,230% in the first 3 years. Yeah.
Congrats, man.
Is it revenue growth?
No, it's percentage of revenue growth. Okay. It's not based on revenue though, because there's companies who did like.
No, that's what I meant. Revenue growth. Yeah.
Correct.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. We were excited. We just came from the gala. We were at Palm Desert last week, and it was really awesome. Just kind of networking and chopping it up with these other entrepreneurs who have the same war stories and battle scars. It was funny. Everyone was just kind of like, it was like a rehab meeting. Like, yeah, my name is Tony. I'm an entrepreneur. I got shit on too, So it was pretty cool, man. We're really excited because we really think that I'd like to think that our construction company isn't a traditional construction company. I like to think that of our company more like a startup. I like to think about how we can do something different and kind of utilize, be resourceful about the things that are at our disposal, like social media, like community things, and kind of growing up, I didn't really have like a hometown hero to say, wow, I want to be like that guy. He's a young,
Eddie
successful.
wasn't around yet.
My boy Eddie
Mr.
Garcia,
Eddie.
he wasn't around yet. But there wasn't someone that you could point to say, hey, that guy has a nice car, or he's doing really well, and he has a successful business, and he's doing things for the community, And a lot of the times when we're doing things, I would hope, because I'm part of the board of the Cicero Boys Club now, and one of the hopes that I had was that I could be that kind of role model for younger Latinos that could be like, hey, you know what, I want to be like Tony one day. I want to do things right. I want to strive. Go to the military. Open a business and still not forget about the community, which I think is very near and dear in our heart here at Walton. So it all comes into so social media allows us to kind of showcase what we're doing, who we're doing it with, and stuff like that, so that we can go ahead and I guess you could say be an example. Be the change, as we like to call it here.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Correct.
So Cicero Boys Club is what do you do with them? Like, how are you
I'm
involved with
I'm
them?
on the board there. I'm the vice president of the board there, and what they do is it's kind of like the Boys and Girls Club of America, except that this club specifically is one of the only few clubs that it's just boys club, and it's really just because they don't have the facilities to house girls, so they house girls at a different location. But they do really cool events. A good friend of mine, Edgar Montiel, he's a president there, and he just does amazing things for the community. They teach. They're doing like seminars for kids to learn how to go to college, how to apply for FAFSA. Because a lot of these people, their parents, they don't know any better. They have no clue, and they don't know. They don't want to ask. They feel embarrassed. They're working 2 or 3 jobs,
or they just think that they can't do it.
Correct.
Like, it's not even the fact that they don't know how to and they don't want to ask. Is in their mind they think that you're not going.
It's not possible.
Like,
for
it's
you.
not possible
Correct.
for you, and it might be because there's plenty of scholarships available.
So I went to this camp when I first got on the board earlier in the summer, and I went with my friend Edgar. They need chaperones. It was really funny because it was so hot, dude, and it wasn't up northern Wisconsin. It was just miserable. But I got a chance to kind of just hang out with the boys. And there was this kid. His name was Angel, I remember, and he was telling me, I'm like, oh, so I was just kind of walking around with him, just talking to him, what's your name? And I would always ask everyone, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he's like, I don't know. He said something like, I want to work at Starbucks or something like that. I'm like, no, dude, you got to go to college. He's like, no, I'm not smart enough to go to college. I don't think they'll let me in. Something like that. And it just broke my heart, dude. And as I talked to more and more of these kids, it wasn't the norm around them. Like, did they aspire to? Maybe. But they didn't believe personally that it was obtainable to them, and that was really a rude awakening. And then one of the meetings that we had after that, we were like, hey, because the board is comprised of very successful people, Eddie Garcia's on the board, there's a few accountants, there's a few bankers, dental entrepreneurs who own dentists. I mean, there's people who are successful in that board. And I told them, like, hey man, these kids think what good are we doing if they don't know that they can actually go to college, they can make these things possible. So Edgar kind of took the shift. And to make a long story short, I'm very happy that I'm there to kind of just influence, if I can, a direction and the curriculum of the board there, and kind of every now and then I'll go play ping pong with the kids, hoop around, and just kind of I don't know, just engage. It kind of reminds you, when I usually go there when I have like a really tough day, like if I would have gone there today, probably if I didn't have this, because it kind of it makes you remember that life is so much more than just profits, and losses. It's more than that. There's more wealth than just money, and it's really what you leave behind. It's the legacy that you leave behind, and to me, that's very important. That's what my dad raised me to leave. We have to leave this world in a better condition than how we found it.
How can somebody get involved with the Boys Club of Cicero?
Oh man, dude! Any way you can. Like the first thing that Edgar would do is he would kind of just bring you on and say, hey, why don't you come hang out with me? He'll walk you through. He'll let you play ping pong with the boys, and you can really get a grasp on what's it there for, because they're a non-for-profit organization. Every kid can go there after school from like 3 till like 9, because most of these kids' parents have like 2 or 3 jobs. So they're just at home, or they're just like horrible influences on the street, right? If they
would just be on the street,
correct,
with their friends, or just at home watching
just at
TV,
home,
not doing anything.
So there they have different like leagues and what's it called? Extracurricular activities, dude. Like they have like basketball, they have ping pong championships, they have skee ball, they have all so many things. So, but everything's curriculum based, man. So they'll be teaching things like they have like a Money Matters thing that they're teaching them now. They're teaching them about college, like I mentioned before, and kind of just ingrain some of that stuff. But the thing is that every kid who goes there only pays $10 a year. So it's really something phenomenal for the community, but obviously it's not sustainable, right? It's not sustainable. So Edgar goes around kind of taking up, meeting with entrepreneurs, meeting with companies like Comcast and AT&T and Best Buy, and they're making these donations because they see the value. Before they never ask you for a check. They say, hey, come check us out so you can see what we do. Yeah. And when you're there and you see the value that the staff is doing there, and they're providing lunches in the summer where they have nowhere to go, you just really fall in love with, what they're doing. They're changing people's lives there.
Definitely, I mean, because coming from a first generation here, right, and not having an example of this is what you should do, like you said, or there is a path for you to get out of whatever situation you're in. You just don't know what you don't know, and then
Correct.
You're not gonna end up anywhere, or you're gonna end up, just having a dead end job for the rest of your life.
Slip through the cracks.
If there's not somebody that's gonna guide you or give you an example, or let you know that there is better things that are possible for you.
I mean, you need a role model, and that's like a great example. They rely on volunteers to come in and be role models for these kids. They don't otherwise have one in their lives.
Correct. We'll play dodgeball next time we go.
Yeah. Man, that just brings back stories from playing dodgeball in high school.
It's always a good time when we're there, man.
But yeah, you just got back from Houston, right?
Correct. So myself, Ricardo Perez from the Dapper Club, Eric Gutierrez from Reyes Furniture. They're out of they're a staging company, furniture store out of Melrose Park. We kind of got together, and after the the earthquake that happened in Mexico, and we kind of already had an understanding about how the Mexican politics work. It's unfortunate. It's not like here. I mean, people complain about FEMA and help to Katrina, or even to Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, which is horrible. It's unexcusable, really, but it's so much worse in that country. Because of the mismanagement of resources and finances there. So we knew eventually that Hurricane Harvey victims were going to get the help that they needed. Same thing in Florida, and even though it's taking a long time in Puerto Rico, we knew that they were going to get the help, or they're going to get the help that they need soon. We knew that it'd be very difficult for people that were in Mexico who, they live check to check. It's not so much that their stuff got damaged, it's that it crippled their economy. If you were a taxi cab driver and your taxi cab got lost in the rubble, you don't have the finances to go finance a car. It's not like that in Mexico. You have to literally you'd have to be very wealthy to finance a car in Mexico. You'd have to go buy cash. Right. And same thing with people's homes. There was no, Catholic Charities kitchen where you can go with your family and just be housed there. It's not like that. So we kind of just partnered together, and we tried to see what we could do to, raise awareness. We collected a lot of donations, and there were so many was an outpour of help, man, of people who were of Mexican descent. And I was more surprised that there was more help from people who are not Mexican, who just really saw that we were trying to do a better thing for people who need some help. So I was in Houston because, again, the Mexican politics didn't allow my trailer to go through. So I went there to kind of get the trailer back, if you will, and kind of go through their very strict, customs. Basically, they made it so difficult that if it had been anybody else, I think, they say 9 out of 10 people who don't find the guidelines, they just leave their trailer there, they abandon it, and then they just kind of they siege everything. So we were very fortunate enough to partner with an organization that was out of Houston. So from the border, they brought the trailer back 8 hours that we had to pay for. So we unloaded everything again, repalletized it. It was silly, it was really, really silly. And then that non-for-profit organization put us in contact with the Mexican government, who got us a letter from the president of Mexico himself, or the administration at least, so that we can go through customs and get it.
That's so crazy to me.
It's nuts, man. You're helping their people. It's
like,
nuts.
We're trying to help you.
Yeah.
So they literally stopped it at the border and wouldn't let
they were trying to
provisions
confiscate it. Correct. They were trying to take it.
So now you have to try to go through the whole process again?
I did have to go through the whole, it's costing us like an unbelievable amount, really, just the logistics of the trailer, So we were at the border. They didn't let us go through. They were trying to confiscate the trailer. We were able to get it back and then ship it 8 hours north to Houston, part of my French, but like unfuck the situation with the trailer, that so to speak was wrong with it. And then we redid everything all over again. We were just kind of sitting around like ducks waiting for a letter from the administration, so now we can go back. So today it got picked up from Houston, and it should be at the border tomorrow morning.
And you're going back to Mexico?
I'm going to go back to Mexico. I'm not going to go to the border because I have a point of contact who's going to receive it for me there, but I'm going to go back to receive it next week. And so so over there we're partnering with another non-for-profit organization who's going to help us distribute it, because we don't know people on the ground, but we wanted to go to the most affected areas and more towns and cities, because we knew that the capital of Mexico, which is where the earthquake hit, would have got as much help as they would give. So we went kind of to a more rural area where we can be more of an impact.
Gotcha. I mean, I've been on a couple earthquakes, and that shit sucks, man. Like, I know you're half Salvadorian,
yeah.
Right? I don't know if you remember, if you have family out there who were in the 2001 earthquake.
No, I don't.
Back in it was like January 13th.
Were you there?
2001, I think it was, or something like that. Yeah, I was still living there. It was probably one of the most horrifying experiences I've ever had in my life. Like, you just feel so helpless. Because if it's raining, right, you just go inside. Mm-hmm. If it's really cold outside, you just keep warm. It's an earthquake. It's everything that you can touch, everything that you can see is just moving.
That's crazy.
It looks like there's a snake under the ground, and it's super terrifying.
But the biggest thing is that you can't predict it. I think that's what makes it scary.
That's even the worst part, right?
Yeah.
You can't say, it's going to happen at this time.
Correct. Unlike a hurricane where you're like, hey, everyone brace yourselves.
You can foresee it.
Correct.
And I remember like watching the neighbors' houses just completely collapsing.
That's crazy.
And not having water or electricity for like 2-3 weeks. I remember that we were so terrified to be inside the house that my dad had a pickup truck, so we would put like a cover on the back, mm-hmm. and then just throw a mattress in the bed on the pickup truck and just sleep there for like the 2 weeks following the earthquake.
Wow.
And like it was. And and the fact that you guys took the time out of your lives from here and drive supplies and things for people out there, that's awesome, man. Because it's from my perspective and having experienced it really helps receiving things that you wouldn't otherwise have access to or even be able to get, like
sure.
Simple things as like water.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Like it just brings back a lot of memories, and it's awesome of you guys to do that.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, I think it's the least that we could do. I think that we have to have, as successful entrepreneurs, I think we have to have a sense of responsibility for the community, right? And even though Mexico per se is not our community that we service, over 90% of my employees are Mexican. Same thing with
team people, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Just everybody, right?
Yeah, we're all one race, right? So like, if whatever we can do to help, we want to do that. We definitely underestimated how difficult this was going to be. I'll say that, but I'm happy that we could be a help.
That's awesome. Glad you guys made it happen, and hope that you guys can actually get everything through and to the people.
Oh yeah, we're praying, man.
For sure. Good luck with that. Want to do a follow up and see how it goes?
Absolutely.
So, what's new for you guys, like now in Walton Contractors? Like, what I guess kind of tying back to, now that you're pretty much you're a lot more ahead than you were maybe a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
What's next for you guys?
Man, we are really knocking it out of the park with just helping investors. We're primarily a B2B company, right? So we've been working a lot with investors and developers to help them, fulfill their value add dreams, right? So we're doing things with medium-sized developers downtown, 68 units. We did over 54 units in Pilsen, and we're also doing single-family homes in smaller neighborhoods as well. So we're not prejudiced of what kind of project we want to do. As long as we love anything that's real estate related that surrounds construction. It's in that bubble that we think we do well because we have the staff, we have the project managers. I think that we have a really solid system to provide the level of a warm and fuzzy, if you will, to the investor or the developer. There's always someone who's gonna pick up your call. There's always someone who's going to respond. There's always going to be professional. We don't work out of our truck, right? So right now, since, there's a lot of speculation in the real estate market and a lot of people are buying homes, it's really just become like, we're not even marketing at this point. Just people are, through word of mouth and through some of our social media stuff, they're seeing that we're a player in the game, as I like to call it, and we like to do that. We're not the cheapest person, I'm not going to lie. But obviously that comes with a company that has overhead, right?
I mean, usually if you go with the cheapest contractor or the cheapest bid, you're going to end up having to repair what they fucked up eventually.
Absolutely.
And it's going to end up costing you even more than what you would have paid with a legit company like you guys.
You know what? I think that there's two ways that people lose money. Either one, like you said, they're going to screw something up or not pick up their phone. Or two, even if they do it and do it right, they're going to take a lot longer to do it. Because once the contractor reaches a point where he owes you more work than you owe him money, he's going to drag his feet. He has to go on to the next job.
He's got all the leverage.
Correct. He's got to go to the next job to start getting checks from that, collecting those construction draws so he can kind of, pay his guys, pay himself.
I think that's what makes you guys at Walton Contractors, a lot of what you do is not done in the industry. Like a recurring theme that we've had on the podcast, or that contractors screw you over a lot. We do a lot of bashing contractors, not on like purpose. It just comes up because we talk to other investors.
The support group.
Yeah, and a lot of people go through a lot of stuff, and you guys are different, and we've seen that just kind of what we talked about, and you actually guys come highly recommended by a lot of other investors that I know, and you kind of pick up the pieces from other investors that got screwed over by their contractors, and because you guys actually care, you have the communication, the integrity, and you actually want to make a difference and an impact. Where a lot of guys just want to get in and out, they want to make money, and they don't necessarily want to help. They don't care about everybody, they're just going to care about themselves.
Tony's more for the long term here. He's not trying to make money off of just one deal. It's more about building a relationship and
Absolutely.
the fact having a name out there.
I just want to get on base, man. I'm not trying to hit a home run,
Yeah. When you got the reputation to take care of, and you want to grow that, building relationships. Where in our last podcast, it's actually what we're talking about is business isn't like making money; it's building relationships. And from that, word goes around a lot because it's a small industry. So once somebody can vouch for you, then they would talk to their friends about you, and it just grows and grows. And that's how you kind of take over an industry.
Yeah, man, I'm very proud of that. We worked very hard organically. We really haven't started we didn't start marketing really until last year because we wanted to really bring a solid foundation of referrals and jobs that we can kind of showcase, if you will, and say, hey, this is what we did. But to your point, I think that I don't think there's one investor that worked with us at one point that has stopped working with us. We've built relationships, so people who used to be our clients have now become some of our joint venture partners, because they like the way that we do things, and like you said, we're here for the long term. I'm not going anywhere. We're investing a lot in our company so that we could stay here and be a value add. The biggest thing, dude, I think the biggest difference, our biggest competitive advantage is that Walton's biggest client is Walton. And what I mean by that is that we ourselves, as a general contractor, are real estate investors. We invest our own money. So it's very easy for us to be a sounding board for your projects. It's easy for us to say, hey, man, you know what? I don't think you have to over-renovate. Or, we can look at things where other contractors can really benefit and say, well, he wanted 3 baths. I'm not going to tell him that he needs to do a water service upgrade. I'll give him that change order later. We're not like that at all. We'll tell you right from the get, well, if you want to add another bathroom or you want to do this, you're going to be past your fixture count, and you're going to probably have to do a water grade service upgrade. Or same thing whenever you're building homes. I keep seeing this all the time where people are putting their numbers together and they're not accounting for a 2-hour fire rating on the homes that are so in the city, especially because it's so close, and a non-combustible material on the outside, So they're getting quotes for a 2x4 wall with, R13 battery insulation and just vinyl siding, which is not okay. That's not code.
Right.
So whenever push comes to shove, you're getting dealt a change order, right? So we like to nip those things in the bud just because we know personally we don't like change orders, and because we're real estate investors, and you might not like my bid, or people might not like what I say about their project, but more often than not I get a call 2 or 3 months later or half month, say, hey man, I'm in trouble, you're right about this, can you come get me out of this issue? I see it all the time, and for us it really puts us at an awesome position because one, we were right, and two, we can save the day, right? But I hate to see investors lose money because I had someone who saved me from making a huge mistake. Another industry guy who I met indirectly, George Foster. I think you guys know him.
Yeah.
Awesome guy. He was the first hard money lender that I was dealing with for my first flip. I took him to this three flat, it was like 3 apartments in Bronzeville. It was a Greystone, and I said, hey, I want to renovate this house. I forgot what it was, for $100,000. And he looked at me. He's like,
Full guy.
Yeah. He's like, if I let you get this deal, this will be your first and your last flip. And I remember the first time I was really upset about it. I was like, oh, come on, man. I could do it. But looking back, he was absolutely right. It would have been my first and my last flip, And so I thank him for that. And it's like, so it was like that tough love that you're not happy with and you probably don't even agree with at the moment. Yeah. But looking back, I hope that there's some people who maybe got some tough love from our company, but says, you know what, that crazy bastard was right,
Because you could have easily went forward with it, made a bunch of money, and then halfway through
because
the
he was
project,
gonna get paid anyway. Because
correct,
they always get paid.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, to have the honesty and the integrity to turn down business to help somebody else out that you barely know. That's huge.
That is awesome.
And I bet you still have a relationship with him today.
I do. He's quite the home inspector. So if you're listening,
cool
he's very knowledgeable, man. He's probably one of I meet a lot of contractors, or quote unquote contractors, right? He is someone that every time I meet with him or I talk to him, I learn something from him. He's a very smart guy. He's a wealth of knowledge, man, and I really respect him.
Because he's a GC, but he's also a home inspector, and I think he's also a broker.
He's a lot of things, man. I think, you know what it is? He has a partnership, I believe, with another architect. Mm-hmm. So he's partnered with an architect, if I'm not mistaken, and I think the architect has his real estate license. I'm not sure. I knew he was a home inspector, which for all our, like when my family and friends buy homes, I always tell them, hey man, they'll always call me like, hey, who can I get to inspect my home? And I'll just keep recommending him because he's going to bring up things that no one else is going to bring up because he's looking at it from a contractor standpoint. He's not looking at it from like, hey, I'm just an inspector, right? And you kind of need that background because now as a general contractor, you should be knowledgeable over a lot of different items. You can't be an electrician and become an inspector and be knowledgeable about plumbing issues or HVAC issues or structural issues. But as a GC, you should be, right? You should.
Because you know a little bit of all, or
absolutely
most of the things about all.
You should know a lot about a lot, you know? And I think he does.
Awesome. So I think we were talking about last time, and I thought it was interesting how you guys had your business set up, where you have a section of the business that does a lot of stone repair and exterior work. Then you have you do construction for investors. I don't know. Can you talk a little
Absolutely.
bit more about?
So our company's really broken up into 3 departments. So like we start up primarily doing storm restoration, where we work with insurance agent, and we have a team of sales guys who kind of help homeowners get their collateral damage replaced. And that's we love that part of the business, man, because it's working with insurance agents. It's kind of like cut and dry. There's no negotiations. We're not arguing. We're not arguing pricing at that point with consumers. We're really arguing, or if arguing is the right word, we're really debating coverage, right, and dealing with the insurance adjusters. So that's always worked really well for us. I think we did like 250 claims last year alone on that. And then we have a general construction part of the business where we do a lot of commercial stuff. We really help, I call it the non-for-profit part of our business because we help a lot of churches out. So churches that are on the verge of getting shut down by the fire marshal because they have structural issues, specifically in the south sides where we do most of our stuff, whether it's roofing, asphalt, windows, structural, it's really just construction in general, right? But on a more commercial scale. And then we have what's my baby, I like to call it, the investment portion of our company, where we help rehabbers help do their rehabs, or we help developers do their construction as well. When I say developer, I really mean someone who's bringing all the pieces together. I'm talking about we work for a big company who we just finished 68 units for them on Michigan Avenue. and we were kind of the GC on point, you know, where they handled the money, they handled the investors, they handled the trades, they handled the city politics. I mean, because on that scale, it's a lot more intricate, man. There's a lot more moving parts there, you know. So we do anything. That's the part where we do anything that's any construction that's related to real estate. And I love that, man. I just like, if I won the lottery today, I'd still come into work tomorrow, because this is what I love the most about the business, is really seeing the real estate value add part. And I think the best thing about doing all three of those things that are really independent of each other is that it really diversifies us as a company. So if for example, we're running into an issue where we were helping an investor clean up his rehab, right? And since we don't have an equity position in this deal, and it's not our deal, we weren't aware that this guy ran out of money. So basically, he owes us more money than he has left to collect with his hard money lender. Oh. So his whole idea was that, well, I was going to try to get it to this point and then get it refinanced through another lender. It's a big mess. But the thing is that we're able to continue functioning as a company, although he owes us a large sum of money, right? You know, so right now we're juggling about 15, 17 projects at a time. So we have the size, reach, and capacity. So to circle back is that whenever there's a challenge where, you know, investors having a hard time getting money from their hard money lender, or we're waiting for a 2 or 3K payment, which can sometimes take many weeks to do that, the other portions of our business really help us with the cash flow, which is the bloodline of a company, right? Kind of diversifying the income. So when we have money coming in through storm restoration or general construction, it allows us to continue doing the rehabbing.
So you're diversified enough to where...
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like a lot of contractors run out of money. I mean, a lot of investors run out of money too. But especially if you have your own money as an investor, you have a great contractor, but then they don't get paid from one of their other clients, then it hurts your project, because then they're out and they can't pay their guys.
Yeah, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we've had that happen, man. It sucks.
Multiple times.
It's crazy, man. Because I could see how so much fraud, just being a general contractor and being an investor at the same time, I can see how easily fraud is able to be committed on the construction standpoint, you know? And that's why when I say like Walton's our biggest client, that's because we want to be our biggest client. You know, we can go out and start marketing and do other people's jobs, but we like to being able to control the cash flow, saying, hey, we have these 10 deals and these 10 deals are Walton's. And once we hit these construction milestones, we can go ahead and request a draw. We know that there's nothing really stopping us from collecting that money, because 1, we're the owner, 2, we're the GC, and 3, we're working directly with the bank and the invoicing department, you know?
You have full control.
Absolutely. But it's also dangerous. I think, and I was one time talking to investors like, well, you should just do that. I'm like, no, but then that's scary too, because I need a sustainable business. What happens if the market goes sideways? You know, I'm not going to just keep buying houses. I'm not going to stay alive just doing Walton flips. I want to do other people's flips as well. So it kind of keeps us, you know, relevant in the marketplace. It keeps more income, and at the same time, I'm really just getting paid to be a GC. I'm not getting paid to be an investor, which sometimes, as we all know,
it's a lot less stressful.
It's a lot less stressful, for sure. You know,
that's interesting, man, because it's cool, because if the like right now it's a super competitive market, right? You might not be able to find as many deals, but you still have other deals from other people coming.
Correct.
In. So
it's
the market
uber
dries
competitive,
up, right.
and there's very few good GCs, and the good GCs a lot of times are either really busy or very expensive for investors, because investors did their numbers wrong to begin with. Not all investors, but you know, I call them the speculators, like really the investors that are just entering the marketplace, that are causing real estate prices to go up because they're overbidding on a job. They did their numbers wrong.
1C, 2C, like the people that only do 1 or 2 rehabs.
Correct.
They're willing to pay a little bit more.
Absolutely, because they're willing to make a lot less.
Or they're paying cash and they don't have those financing costs that other investors have. But the cash flow allows them to do 1 or 2.
Year, right?
But that's far few in between, though. It's more that they're just like, I'm okay making 10,000. That's okay, you know, like that.
Until you lose like 20 because the numbers are wrong.
Correct.
Until you got to upgrade the water service, because you see that there's your 10 grand.
There's your
probably
10 grand.
5, depending.
Which brings me to like analyzing. Sorry to interrupt you, man. To analyzing a flip, man. Like, so what metric do you guys use to analyze?
So we have our own little formula, and Matt is the one that usually deals with that. Do you want to go into
the secret sauce?
Yeah, kind of. Just so we have everything like accounted for. It's usually can't do it without a spreadsheet, but no. See, you know, take the purchase price and the rehab. Make sure you account for the closing costs on both end, and the realtor cost, and after you do all that, you know, you want to have at least 20% ROI. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're okay with 15%, but we'll never estimate it that low, because you want to end up there, you know, in case you go over budget or
Correct.
It sells for less.
Some contingency, right?
But yeah, you want to make sure you count everything in there, because, you know, in HGTV, it's like, oh, purchase price, rehab,
That's it.
Sales price, profit. It's like, where's closing costs, Where's your, holding costs, utilities, insurance,
Where's your money
taxes.
costs? Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that people don't account for. And when you go to close on your first flip, you're expecting like this much. Then all of a sudden you're like, well, where did it all go? And you weren't expecting that.
You haven't paid taxes on the last year and a half that it took you to complete the rehab, so there's that 10 grand that you were gonna make.
Then it all comes out at once, especially if you buy later in the year and it's like prorated. Then you got to pay for the first half of the year when you bought it from the previous homeowner, and you don't expect that.
So we try to account for as many things as we can, trying to just to cover our ass.
Got it.
But yeah.
But yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your biggest thing? Because you're one of the few really good, general contractors that are out
Thank
there.
you.
Because there's a lot of guys who are just in and out and bad reputations and this. But people who are just starting, which that's kind of their biggest hurdle. They just hire somebody and they have no idea. They don't know about the construction side, and they don't know how to tell a good GC from a bad one. Like, what are some of the red flags that you would warn them about, or how to spot somebody who's going to take advantage of them? Because that's kind of, I think, the biggest thing where people get into the business, they lose a bunch of money, or even if they make money, it's like a really hard process, and they're like, oh, real estate doesn't work, and then they quit.
I like to say that most investors, I say that they're lazy, but I don't think they're lazy. I think they're just busy. But part of your due diligence is really doing research on your contractor. So one thing that I heard the other day that was really intelligent is that if someone is a good contractor, or they know how to flip, or they're in the game right now, right, they should have at least 2 or 3 projects. They can say, hey, so if you're interviewing a contractor, and I say that you should do it face-to-face so that you can look it up, say, hey, what are 2 or 3 projects that you're working on right now? And they should have at least one, right? I mean, it's pretty, you should have at least one,
Least.
But I would say 2 to 3, just because it shows you that they can juggle a few amount of jobs, and they're not going to be hurt by someone not paying them.
Right,
That's
they
what
got
it
cash
shows.
flow.
It solidifies them as a business and not just a handyman. But I would ask them, hey, I want to go see your projects, because everything looks good in pictures. Everything looks good. Photoshop does miracles. You go in there and you start seeing crappy craftsmanship, or things are missing, baseboards missing, the tiles wobbly or not level. You grab the kitchen, the kitchen sink faucet, and it falls apart or something like that. You want to go walk through them. I would ask for 3 referrals, right? And I would want to make sure that that they know. I think with those 2 things, you can eliminate half of the contractors that you meet, because one of them, two things are going to happen is either they screwed over other real estate investors, and they're not going to give you any referrals, or 2, they're not that good, or they're just starting out, or whatever, and they don't have 2 or 3 projects. You want that. Normally the cheapest guy is not the one that you want, and I'm not saying that from a cost perspective. Is that there's a reason why he's cheap and readily available. People who are good and do their and run their company like a business, which is what you want, so you don't run into these money crunch issues. They're going to be busy. They're going to charge a fair market value price. They're not going to overcharge. I mean, that's wrong too. You shouldn't overcharge, but they're going to charge you the fair market value. Whenever they're charging below market value, there's an issue there in their business. Either they need money now, they need a deposit now, which is going to hurt you later, or 2, they're not busy because their work sucks.
Yeah. Or even if you go to those 3 projects in the middle of a day on a weekday, and then
no one
nobody's there, that's a big issue too, because it's like, where are your guys? Like, maybe this project's been sitting for a month, and you're like, oh, look how nice everything is.
And when you ask for referrals, I would say you need to ask for what. So like, you say, hey, this is John Smith. Okay, great, John Smith. What job did you do for them? Because you don't want them giving you your cousin's number, So you're telling him right there. You're not requesting it in an email. You're asking him right there and then, And then you're gonna really weed out the,
I've had guys go as far as telling me that they can't show me pictures because their computer just broke.
Oh man.
Like, come on.
That's whack.
I'm sure you have them on your phone too.
But give me the address.
Because if you're proud, like most contractors are very proud of what they do.
Of course.
They're willingly, if it's a good contract, it's a guy that is proud of what they do. He will show you. He'll take you to the house and tell you like all the little things, or how he centered the outlets within the wainscoting and all these things.
Correct.
Right? They're very proud of what they do. So I don't see why somebody who does well and who means well would have any issue taking you to the projects.
I guess another thing to add to that would be just making sure that someone has like a secondary. Like they could be the main project manager if they're a smaller company, but you would want someone like, hey, I want the foreman on site, or the site supervisor's number 2, because it's going to be impossible to always get a hold of that person. And if ever you have an issue with whatever, city, the architect, the permits, whatever it may be, you as an investor want an answer right there and then. Hey man, do I have a room for a 30-inch vanity or 36? Whatever's coming up, you want to know right then and there. It becomes kind of a crisis for you. You want to make sure that they have an assistant who can, answer the questions that you need or is on site if that investor, like for myself, we have 4 project managers. I'm not always on site. I'm very rarely, I kind of do like weekly visits with all my projects, and I meet with my site supervisors and my project managers, but I'm not there every day. It's not sustainable for me to be there every day. There's other things that are better and higher use of my time, right? That I need to be doing. It's not that it doesn't need to be managed, but it doesn't need to be managed by me occasionally. So like if you don't have a secondary, it's going to be an issue in your construction when you're trying to find something out. You know, if this guy gets sick or his car breaks down or, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of happened to us too, where the guy had a death in the family and then he goes to Guatemala for 3 weeks and the project sits for 3 weeks.
That's horrible.
Which is sad, but then it's like the business needs to still kind of go
Run
on when you're gone. And yeah.
So what, did you guys find out 3 weeks later, or how that?
No, I found out when his phone wasn't, the calls weren't going through.
Okay.
I had to email him to figure out where the hell he was at.
Oh man, that's horrible.
Anyway, that project's been sold by now, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, I guess I wanted to ask you, how do you have is that how you have your construction? It's you, and then you have project managers, or how is your company structure set
it's
up?
really more linear management than vertical, but it's myself who oversees that department. We have 4 project managers, we have site supervisors and teams, and that's kind of flexible because sometimes if you're doing some kind of work, you know, the same guys stay in charge, but you'll send the different team members with them, right? So we have 18 on-staff employees. We have 34 contractors that we work for. So we almost oversee, and then we have the administration. So like we have office support. So we have an office manager. We have a storm restoration side administration. Then we have a rehabbing administration where they handle invoicing, accounts receivable. If there's ever a question about, hey, how much do I owe you, or what's left, or what's the next construction draw, or what's the detail for this, someone's always here 9 to 4, Monday through Friday, that can answer your question regarding the administrative aspect of your flip. But on site, any questions about like, hey, there's no one here, which is never a problem, but like, can we move the dumpster, or the neighbor told me that someone's breaking into the home, there's always someone who can really answer those questions, whether it be a project manager or site supervisor. Someone's always at your home every day of the week.
It's more like an actual company or business than a guy who has 3 guys that can work under him.
Correct.
And just kind of, moves on his own. And
absolutely.
Which is great.
Absolutely. Whenever you include the arms of our company, which we really see, like our contractors, like I think most of them we make up like 70% of the work. We give them a lot of work, whether it's the different roofing crews or electricians, plumbers, HVAC, framers, whatever. We oversee about 100 people that really are under the responsibility or under the umbrella of Walton, right? Because we really just consider them an extension of us. We expect them to act right when they're at a job and treat the job as if it was theirs, right? But I think that enables us to deliver a better product, and I think the better product is really just giving the investor peace of mind. Whenever someone's communicating with you and letting you know that there is a delay or there is a challenge and there's a solution or a plan of attack for that, well, now you can sleep well at night because now you have an industry expert who can help you or walking you through or answering your phone calls and emails saying, hey, dude, this is the challenge. We're going to be behind a week because of A, B, and C. We're working on it with the architect to submit it to the city, whatever the challenge may be, but you have someone who's in your court, dude, and you can go back. The investor's job is not really to be a project manager or quarterback for the renovation. Do you need to show up? Absolutely. Do you want to see that there's progress going on? Absolutely. But it's not in your expertise to manage that. Your expertise should really be, how do I find the next deal because I have the right general contractor.
Finding deals and finding money should be your job.
Absolutely.
As an investor.
But most investors spend most of their time trying to quarterback the construction, and rightfully so, because there's so many shitty contractors out there.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to Roy, who you've partnered with and done construction for, and he was telling me, I was asking him about you, and because we were thinking about hiring you guys for one of our flips, and he was, man, he's like, I used to show up like twice a day sometimes to my projects, and then he's like, ever since we hired Walton, or Tony, I'd go maybe once a month. Once
a month is right, dude, if at all.
You call it quarterbacking, but a lot of our investors call it babysitting because it's literally like showing up every day and be like, where's everybody? And nobody's there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So since you're an investor as well, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on the market right now?
Man, I always say that the market makes sense looking at it
backwards.
Looking at it backwards, right? Looking at it in its history. Right now, there's definitely slowing down in anything that's above 550,000 is what I'm seeing, right? And as a whole, inventory is staying on the market a lot longer. So I always tell myself that when we started flipping 3 years ago, I said I only have 18 months to do this. And then the market's gonna tank, because we're jaded from the last recession or the horror stories that I've heard. So I always try to think that don't over leverage yourself, obviously, right? You have to be calculated. You need to, whenever people are doing their math and I'm speaking directly to rehabbing, right? The market for rehabbing. I always make sure that, we're using data to assess our after repair value. I'm never speculating. I'm not saying, hey, they're building a Whole Foods here. This means I could sell it for $150,000 more. No. Actually, we just turned a deal that we were doing in Wheaton. It was going to be a new construction home that we were going to buy. We bought a home. We're going to knock it down. And then and we were going to build like an $850,000 home. And then after we're seeing some reports, after we had purchased it, we're like, you know what, dude? No, we're just gonna gut this thing and we're gonna put it back on the market, because things that were above $550,000 or even $750,000 were moving a lot slower than they were before we were in negotiations for the short sale. So we put this thing under contract over 9, maybe 10 months ago, and by the time this came out, we're like, let's change our strategy here. We're gonna make less money, but we're gonna sell it for $475,000, and we're just gonna do a gut rehab. So it's not, I don't know if I'm scared about it. I think there's a lot of really positive things going on in the marketplace. Like they're saying that there's going to be about 17 new skyscrapers from the beginning of 2017 to the end of 2019. You got the Wanda Towers. You got, but the scary thing is that what does that do to A-class properties that are existing right now? A-class properties now become B-class properties, and so on and so forth. And then when you talk about, Google trying to bring their second headquarters here, or all these, jobs are leaving Illinois, or it's just so
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, dude, and it's
crazy
really,
right now.
you have to really look at it, I think, on a macro level and say, hey, how does this affect what I'm doing?
Honestly, I still can't believe they're building apartment buildings right now.
Yeah.
Because you would drive around through the city and you see there's places that were built a year ago, and they're still empty.
Correct.
Like they're literally offering 2.5 or 3 months free rent.
Wow.
Specials kind of thing. Yeah, they're still building them.
It's too much inventory.
It's just before the Groupon building.
Okay.
In Chicago.
On
It's
Larrabee.
probably it's right on, like the newer apartment building that they built. They had like the first 2 months are like free or something like that. And I know there's a lot of them. I'm talking to people. There was a lot of them like that in the Gold Coast that are offering free months of rent because they've just been vacant for so long.
It's that price point, man. I think it's that price point. And then, like, you got to think about it. Like, whenever you're in that like, what is it, like $7,000 a month for rent, or even a $1 million home, you're talking about people who have a lot of options. You can be in Lake Forest renting a mansion for that amount. You could be in Hinsdale renting there's so many options that you can have. I don't know how you scale it. No clue, man. That's not my area of expertise. I'm really just looking at it from the investment portion of how do all these things on a macro level, like millennials not wanting to buy homes, like old people retiring, and going down to Florida. Like right now, I was in Houston. I was looking at real estate down there. I was looking at, hey, how do I diversify myself on the investment side? I have family in Naples, Florida, that we're looking at doing something there in the next year, because we know that on the macro level, people want to become snowbirds, right? Baby boomers are retiring. A lot of them have retired, and more of them are still yet to retire. So how do we cash in on that? How do we continue to apply our competitive advantage of construction and real estate, but independent of a city, a metropolitan city that might be affected by too much inventory?
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess what measures are you guys taking? Seeing what's going on the market. Like, are you going to continue to work on flips, or are you switching to more of a commercial side? Or because I know you just got a license to do like road work for the state and stuff like that.
You know what, dude? We've always been we are government service agency certified, which is GSA. We are licensed to do work with the city. We just got Illinois tollway work, and I've always been. I don't want to say the word is not scared, but it's almost been like I've always been skeptical about it, because it's a net 90, most of them, and sometimes it's even worse with the city. Like, you heard about all these things down at Springfield and Ron are cutting budgets here and there. Not that he shouldn't. I'm not arguing politics. What I'm saying is that it's scary to see that all these things are being cut, and how does that affect me being paid? So if something's already a net 60, a net 90, and I get a loan against a big roadway project, a $10 million project, which is a small project in roadway work, right? And all of a sudden, and my bank is saying, hey, it's been 90 days, 91 days, it's time for you to pay me. But the state decides that because some political stuff going on, that they don't want to pay me for 120, 150 days. Well, that puts me in a bind. So our biggest thing with doing the public sector work was always trying to grow our private part of our business as big as we can. So kind of like we talked about diversification, so we can really, comfortably take a project like that and not really need to be paid, building it organically. We got the certification because we knew we were going to use it at one point, but we don't know if we're really ready at this point to take advantage of that, you know?
Yeah, but that just goes to show that you gotta be diversified and kind of prepare yourself.
100%.
Look at your business more in like a 5 to 10 year kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Instead of just for now.
And not grow too fast, even though you're fastest growing.
That is crazy, man. I've always heard that you don't want to outdrive your headlights. We want to be organic. We want to grow organically, but we want to push the boundaries of what organic is, man. Like I think everyone in our company really hustles really hard, and we don't compare ourselves to other companies. I think it's the best thing. If I were to listen to industry advice and say, yeah, you really want to grow, 10 to 12% year after year, we wouldn't be talking now. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be, I would be just be me, my dad, and a few workers working out of my house or something, you know? But no, it was the idea of saying like, we don't know what the industry average is. We don't have real friends who are doing who we want to become, because everyone that I look up to, real estate developers, are way bigger than me. So I'm like, man, I don't know how they did it. So I'm just hustling, trying to get to where I'm at. But indirectly that affected how fast we were growing. And every time that we do something differently, we just add another player to the game. You know, Jack Welch said that you want to get the good people on the bus and then find a seat for them later, you know? And that's how we kind of live by. We want to get the good people on board right now and try to find a place for them. You know, obviously that you can argue that logic a little bit, but we want the best players in the game. We want to work with the best people, and then the best cost money, right? But I think as long as we can do things calculated and keep pushing the organic growth, I think that you'll keep growing.
I mean, that's the biggest thing too, is they say winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. So as long as you look at yourself and not, try to copy somebody else, you can grow organically, as fast as you want, as big as you want.
That's right, man.
Yeah. All right. So we're actually getting pretty close to the hour here already. That went pretty fast.
That went fast, man.
So I guess to kind of conclude this, what would you advise to somebody who's trying to get started, fixing, flipping, or rehabbing houses?
I would say do your homework, but then I'm scared to say that because a lot of people suffer from analysis paralysis, right? But I would say take the plunge. Make sure that you build your team. I think that one of the things that I see that you guys do a lot is that you guys do a lot of networking events, right? That's just phenomenal. Cash flow and cocktails, which is now cash flow and Coronas.
Yeah, because we switched it to Lazo's.
Trademark issues there, huh?
Lazo's tacos.
No, but that's phenomenal. Like, get out there and network, man. Go. These events have investors, have general contractors, have realtors. They have industry experts, and people who are at those networking events are people who care about their business, right? Because if you cared about your business, you want to go out there and showcase, you want to talk to it, you want to go meet other industry experts. You get out there, meet people who are doing it. Don't be afraid to start building your team, even though you don't have all the resources that you need. But don't do this. Don't say, I work with a team, a network of and you know how the pitch that I'm talking about, right? You be full disclosure with people, man. Tell them, hey, I haven't bought a house yet, and I'm working on my first flip, but I'm trying to build my team. Don't go around saying some goofy elevator pitch that you learned at a $40,000 weekend, to try to impress people, dude. Because the real experts in the game are gonna know that you're a flake,
Not only that, but it's like if somebody tells me that they're trying to get started, I'm willingly gonna help them.
Yeah, you're empathetic.
Try to give them as many resources as I can.
Experienced people respect that, and they want to help. Like we kind of mentor a few people, and I give out free information all the time. And I mean, have the network and at the networking events. That's what I'm doing. Like talking to new people.
Because someone did it for you, I imagine, at some point, at some level, right? And the same thing for me. Someone helped me, and you just want to pay it forward. It feels good to say, hey, man, I know a little bit more than I did last year. Let me help you out. I believe that.
Yeah.
So I would say, get out there, network, go to some of these events, be honest with people, and just try to be resourceful. I think people underestimate the amount of resources that are at their disposal, whether it be friends, family with, good credit or good jobs that you can do a partner. Don't be greedy. 50% of a deal is better than 100% of nothing,
That is true. And don't forget to ask for help. There's a story I heard that I don't think it's that people don't know about it, but when Steve Jobs was 12 years old, he actually emailed the head of Hewlett-Packard of HP because he was trying to put something together, and the guy actually responded, and he had scraps of whatever he was doing, and he sent it to him. Then that summer he hired him, and it wasn't like Steve Jobs. It's just a 12-year-old kid that emailed the president of a company.
Wow.
And then he turned to Steve Jobs, and that was something that's crazy.
That's amazing.
But yeah, don't be afraid to ask people for help or to go to people above you that have more experience than you do, and ask them to.
Because they're usually the people that are actually willing to help the most.
Absolutely.
Right.
I was at a networking event for Hacia, which is a big Hispanic construction thing. I'm gonna make this short, but I met one of my heroes, dude. A local hero, dude. He built 111 East Wacker. the new cool building by related companies.
Yeah.
The construction manager was there.
Nice.
And I went up to him, and I think it's either Don or Dan, now I forget, Bernanke. And I said, hey, you know, tell me about the project. I was so excited about it because it looked so cool. It had all these great reviews. And he went in depth because everyone else is like, hey, can I get a job? Can I get a car? Can you consider me for this job? But I just really wanted to understand, you know, what was his challenges? What was the hardest thing? What was the coolest thing that he did on that project? And he gave me his card. He's like, let me know when you're ready to get lunch. You know, I'll be more happy to tell you everything else. You know, and that was awesome, man, because someone as busy that runs a multi-billion-dollar company like that, you know, and does like big boy projects. I'm talking about massive skyscraper building stuff.
Right.
And not one, like a few of them at a time. To offer his time to someone who, you know, I'm a schmuck to him, you know, he doesn't know me. He offered his time to me for lunch. I'm like, wow, that's amazing, you know, that he would do that. And then that goes true to what you're saying. Like someone who's in the industry who's really making it happen would make time for someone who's not there yet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Someone's always ahead of you. Someone's always behind you, and just following that path.
Correct.
Yeah. How can somebody get in touch with you? Like find out about Walton Contractors hiring you, or just...
Yeah. I would say Walton Contractors on Facebook. It's the best way. Our social media guy is very good about putting the right people in contact with you, whether it's people looking for a job, whether it's leads, whether it's just help or just information. A lot of people call and say, hey, do you know somebody who does that? We have no problems recommending people as long as they're within our network and we trust them, obviously. But I think Facebook on Walton Contractors would be the best way to get a hold of us.
All right, really quick to close out. The day that this comes out, speaking about Coronas and cash flow, the day this comes out, if you're listening to this, we have a Coronas and Cash Flow Day tonight, Monday the 30th at Lazo's Tacos.
Yeah, the day that
at
this
7.
comes out. Not tonight.
Yeah, but if you listen to this right when it comes out, and it's Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game that he created. He's also the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which you've all read, and what actually got us to start our own businesses. And come out, it's a great time, and they'll be in the show notes and probably post it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. Thanks
Awesome.
for your time.
Thank you guys,
Appreciate
man.
Thanks, man.
Till
Appreciate
next
it.
time, guys.
Hey guys, this is Ricardo again. Just a few more things before we head off. First off, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe and rate us on iTunes. Not only do we read every review, but positive reviews also help us reach more people. Second, for show notes and links, head over to profitsoverwages.co. Lastly, on the next episode of the podcast, we sit down with Frank Montreux of Keller Williams, also known as the King of the South Side in Chicago. He's one of the top producers in the Chicago market, a developer, and has been featured in Chicago Agent magazine multiple times. You will not want to miss this one. Until next time.